My sister stole my prom dress I saved for months to buy, but when my grandma discovered the 17 years of abuse I endured, she sued my parents, sent my sister to jail, and disinherited them all. I'm 17 years old. I'm in my senior year of high school. And I need to tell this story because basically my entire life was a living nightmare until a few months ago when my paternal grandmother intervened and literally saved me. I don't even know where to start, to be honest. I guess I should explain first what my family was like. Or, well, what it's always been like for as long as I can remember. I have an older sister, Megan, who's 19 now. And basically she's like the princess of the family and I don't know, like the maid or something. You know what I mean? My parents, who are both like 40, have always treated her like she's some kind of goddess, while they treat me like I'm invisible or worse, like I'm a burden. And when I say always, I mean always, since I was really little. I don't remember a single moment of my life where my parents treated me with the same love or the same attention they give Megan, and that has destroyed me in ways I can't even fully explain. Megan, basically, can do whatever she wants. And there are never any consequences. Literally nothing. She can break things. She can yell at my parents. She can hit me. And trust me, she's done it a ton of times. And they always find some way to justify it or blame me. It's like living in an alternate reality where the normal rules don't apply to her, but I have to walk on eggshells all the time. If I do something wrong, even the smallest thing, it's the end of the world. But Megan can literally destroy the house, and my parents will say she was having a bad day, or that I did something to provoke her. And it's not just the different treatment, you know. It's also all the material stuff. Megan has her own car that my parents bought her when she turned 16. She has the most expensive clothes. She has the latest iPhone. She basically has everything she asks for. I had to get a job at 15 to be able to buy my own things, because my parents never gave me money for anything. And when I say anything, it's anything. Not even for basic stuff sometimes. I've had to buy my own school supplies, my own clothes, everything. Meanwhile, Megan hasn't even worked a single day in her life and has everything handed to her on a silver platter. The thing is, I had learned to live like that. Let's say, I had normalized the situation so much that I didn't even realize how serious it was. I thought maybe it was my fault, that maybe there was something wrong with me that made my parents unable to love me. It sounds horrible when I say it like that, but it's the truth. They had brainwashed me so much that I thought I deserved that treatment. But what happened a few months ago? Well, that was the straw that broke the camel's back, and what finally opened my eyes, and also my paternal grandmother's eyes, who thank God decided to do something about it. So, it turns out in April of this year we had prom at school, right? And I was super excited because I had saved for months, literally months of work, to be able to tell myself a nice dress. I'm not talking about something super expensive or anything, but it was a dress I loved, and that had cost me like $250, which for me was a lot considering I was earning minimum wage working weekends at a store. I had tried it on like 1,000 times. I was super happy. It was like the first important school event I was going to go to where I was going to feel pretty, you know? On prom day, literally 1 hour before I had to start getting ready, Megan walks into my room and sees my dress hanging there, and she says, "I like that dress. I'm going to wear it." And I was like, "What? No, Megan. This is my dress for prom. I bought it with my money. You're not even going to prom." And she just laughs and tells me, "I don't care. I want it." I ran to my parents thinking that obviously they were going to be on my side. I mean, it was my dress that I bought with my money for my important event. But no. My mom looks at me and says, "Megan wants your dress, so give it to her." And I just stood there in total shock. Like, are you serious? I explained to them that I had bought it, that it was for my prom that was that same night, that Megan has a closet full of expensive clothes they've bought her. And my dad says, "I don't care. Your sister wants it and you're going to give it to her. Besides, you don't need to go to that event. Probably no one's going to miss you anyway." Those words hurt so much, I can't even explain. I felt like I'd been stabbed in the chest. So they took the dress away from me, gave it to Megan, and I stayed in my room crying all night while all my friends were at prom. I lost the pictures. I lost the experience. I lost everything. And it wasn't even because I couldn't go. It was because my parents decided that Megan's whims were more important than my happiness. I felt so humiliated, so unimportant, so invisible. A couple days later, my paternal grandmother, who lives like 2 hours away, called me and asked how prom went and to send her pictures. My grandmother is amazing. Honestly, she's always been more loving to me than my own parents, even though I don't see her that often. And I didn't know what to tell her. I started crying on the phone and told her the whole story about the dress. She was quiet for a long moment and then told me, "I need to see you in person. I'm going to pick you up tomorrow and we're going to go to dinner." The next day, my grandmother arrived and told my parents she was taking me to dinner. They said yes because they never mess with my grandmother. Like, she has a lot of money and she's my dad's mom, so he always has a certain respect for her, I guess. We went to a nice restaurant and talked about everything except the dress at first. But before we left, my grandmother took a box out of her bag and gave it to me. It was a new MacBook, like one of the expensive ones. And I was in total shock because no one had ever given me something that valuable. I told her I couldn't accept it, that it was too much. But she told me it was mine, and that I had earned it for being so strong and hardworking. She hugged me and told me she loved me and that she was so sorry for everything, although honestly, I think at that moment she didn't even know half of what was really happening in my house. I got home with the laptop super happy, feeling like maybe someone in my family did value me. Not even a day passed when Megan saw it and obviously wanted to take it from me. She walked into my room and told me, "Give me that laptop." And this time I told her no. I told her that Grandma had given it to me, that it was mine, and that I wasn't going to give it to her. She went crazy, started yelling at me and trying to take it from my hands, and I held it really tight and yelled back at her that if she didn't leave me alone, I was going to tell Grandma everything. Absolutely everything they had done to me and what she had done for years. That stopped her cold. She just stood there looking at me with pure hatred on her face and told me, "You're going to regret this." She left my room, slamming the door, and I stood there shaking because I knew I had crossed a line I had never crossed before. I had always been the one who stayed quiet, who put up with everything. But something in me broke that day. And that same night, I sent my grandmother a message and asked her if we could meet alone without my parents knowing. She said yes immediately, and we agreed to meet 2 days later at a cafe that was like half an hour from my house. I skipped school that day, which was risky because my parents could find out. But I didn't care anymore, honestly. When I saw my grandmother at the cafe, I started crying before I could say anything. And then I told her everything. Absolutely everything. I told her about how Megan had hit me for years and my parents never did anything. I told her about how I had to buy all my things while Megan got everything for free. I told her about the times they had left me without food as punishment for things I hadn't even done. I told her about how my parents told me I was a disappointment and that they wished I had never been born. I told her things I hadn't even told my friends because I was so ashamed to admit how badly they treated me. My grandmother cried while I talked, like I had never seen her cry like that. When I finished telling her everything, she grabbed my hands and told me, "You're never going to go through that again. I promise you." She told me to call my work and say I was sick, that I wasn't going back home that day. She made several calls right there at the cafe. One was to my Uncle Jonathan, who's a lawyer. Another was to other family members. I didn't hear everything, but I know she was organizing something. Then she told me we were going to my house to get my things, all my things, and that I was going to go live with her. I was terrified, honestly. I told her my parents weren't going to let me leave just like that. But she said too bad. They couldn't stop her anyway. We went to my house around 4 inches the afternoon. My parents were there, and so was Megan. My grandmother told them directly that she was taking me with her and that she was going to collect my belongings. My parents got defensive immediately, saying, "What right did she have to interfere in their family and that I was their daughter and blah blah blah." Megan was there looking at me with so much hatred that it made me want to run. And while my grandmother argued with my parents downstairs, I ran upstairs to my room to pack whatever I could. I hadn't packed even half my stuff when Megan came into my room. The door didn't have a lock because my parents never let me put one. Another thing Megan did have, obviously. She yelled at me that I was a traitor and an ungrateful bitch, and I told her to leave me alone and to get out. Then she literally came at me, started pulling my hair and hitting me. I tried to defend myself, but she's bigger than me and stronger, and suddenly, I felt horrible pain in my face, and I knew she had broken my nose because it started bleeding everywhere. My grandmother ran upstairs when she heard me scream. Megan ran out of the room, and when my grandmother saw me with my face all bloody and my eye that was already turning purple, her expression changed completely. She took me directly to the hospital without saying anything to my parents. Well, she did yell something at them, but I don't remember what, because I was in total shock, and it hurt horribly. At the hospital, they took pictures of all my injuries. Not just the new ones, but also old bruises I had on my arms and legs from other times Megan had hit me. The doctors asked what had happened, and my grandmother told them everything, and they called the police. I was terrified. I mean, I knew things were going to get bad, but I didn't imagine to what extent. The police took my statement, took pictures, everything was documented. My grandmother called Jonathan again, and he arrived at the hospital like an hour later. That night, I went to my grandmother's house officially, with a broken nose, a black eye, and basically only with what I had managed to fit in a suitcase. I didn't sleep at all that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Megan's face when she was hitting me. The next morning, Jonathan arrived early and explained to me that they were going to file a formal complaint against Megan for assault and against my parents for child neglect. I asked him if that meant Megan was going to go to jail, and he said probably yes, but it depended on the judge. The next few days were total chaos. The police went to my house and arrested Megan. My parents bailed her out the next day, obviously. My parents called me like 1,000 times, but my grandmother didn't let me answer. Finally, my mom sent me a long text message blaming me for everything, saying that I had ruined the family, that because of me, Megan now had a criminal record, that I was a horrible daughter. My dad sent a similar one. I cried so much reading those messages, despite everything they had done to me. A part of me still wanted them to love me. You know? It's really weird, but that's how it is. But then my grandmother showed me messages she had received from other family members, aunts and uncles who had found out what happened. Turns out when my grandmother told them everything, many said they had always suspected something wasn't right but didn't know how serious it was. And apparently my grandmother told my parents that if they didn't cooperate and didn't accept responsibility, she was going to disinherit them completely because she has quite a bit of money and my dad is an only child, so he was going to inherit everything eventually. After that, my parents completely changed their tone. They sent me messages asking for forgiveness, saying they had been bad parents, that they wanted to fix things. But it was obvious they only said it because of the money, not because they really cared. I didn't even answer them. Honestly, I didn't have the energy for that anymore. My grandmother got me a therapist, an incredible woman who has helped me so much to process everything. At first, the sessions were horrible because I had to talk about things I had buried for years, but after a few weeks, I started to feel a little bit better. Or at least I started to understand that nothing that happened to me was my fault. I also had to concentrate on my final exams because I was in my senior year and I needed good grades to get into college. The legal proceedings took like 3 months. There were hearings. I had to testify. It was horrible reliving everything in front of strangers. But in the end, Megan was sentenced to 6 months in jail for aggravated assault, and my parents were formally charged with child neglect and psychological abuse. They didn't go to jail, but they have records now and had to pay pretty big fines. My grandmother helped me get a restraining order against Megan, which is still in effect. I asked Jonathan if I could get one against my parents too, but he told me it was complicated because technically they hadn't physically assaulted me, and neglect is harder to prove for restraining orders. I decided not to do it anyway because honestly, I don't think they're going to look for me. They lost too much in all this. Despite all the chaos, I managed to get good grades on my finals. I don't know how, honestly, because my head was anywhere but studying, but I did it. And in July, I got the acceptance letter from my dream college, one that's like 4 hours from where my grandmother lives. I cried when I opened that letter, but this time, from happiness, I felt like finally something good was happening in my life. My grandmother told me she was going to pay for all my college, tuition, the dorm, books, everything. I told her she didn't have to do that, but she insisted and told me it was the least she could do after not protecting me before. I told her it wasn't her fault, that she didn't know what was happening, but she still feels bad about it. She bought me everything I needed for the dorm, new clothes, an even better laptop, everything. Now, I've been living at college for like 6 months, and honestly, my life is completely different. I have real friends who treat me well. I have a boyfriend named Caleb who's a really good person, and his family has welcomed me really well too. I go to therapy every week still. I'm getting good grades. It's weird to wake up every day and not be afraid, you know? Not having to walk carefully so as not to make anyone angry. Not having to hide my things so they don't get taken away. Megan got out of jail like a month ago. I don't know much about her life right now, and honestly, I'm not interested in knowing. The restraining order is still in effect, so legally she can't come near me. My parents tried to contact me at Christmas, sending me a card, but I threw it away. without opening it. I have no interest in having a relationship with them. I've made peace with the fact that I'm never going to have the parents I deserve to have. My grandmother comes to visit me every 2 weeks or so, takes me out to eat, and we talk about everything. I love her so much. She basically saved my life. Jonathan has also become an important figure for me. He and his wife invite me to their house during breaks and treat me like part of their family. It's weird to have people who genuinely care about me after having spent 17 years feeling like I didn't matter to anyone. I still have bad days. Obviously. Sometimes I have nightmares about Megan hitting me or about my parents yelling at me. Sometimes I see happy families on campus, and I get sad thinking about what I never had. But my therapist has taught me to handle those moments, to remember that I'm safe now, that I have people who love me. Last week, Caleb asked me if I would ever forgive my parents. I told him I don't know, that maybe someday when I'm more healed, but that right now all I want is to move forward with my life and build my own family eventually, one where no one is the favorite and everyone is treated with love and respect. And that's enough for now, I guess.